The sister of my wife faked a pregnancy test and framed me, saying that I was the father of her child. When I was almost getting to the truth, she broke into my house and me. So, I don't really know where to start. I never thought I'd be the guy posting about my marriage on Reddit, but here I am. Things have gotten so insane in the last few weeks, I feel like I'm living in some twisted reality show. I guess I'll start from the beginning, which, in hindsight, probably wasn't the beginning at all. My name's Jack. I've been married to Olivia for about 2 years now. We met at a friend's party, and it was one of those instant connections. She was funny, smart, and absolutely gorgeous. The kind of woman who turns heads when she walks into a room. I was completely smitten. We moved fast. Engagement, wedding, and the whole forever after deal within a year. Everything seemed perfect. At first. The last couple of months, though, I started noticing weird stuff. Olivia was always texting or on her phone, laughing to herself. I'd ask her about it, and she'd brush it off, saying it was just her group chat with friends. I didn't think much of it at the time, but maybe I should have paid more attention. Then, one evening, everything changed. I got home from work, ready for a quiet night in, when Olivia sat me down with this weirdly serious look on her face. She told me that her best friend, Mia, had something important to talk to me about, and she'd be coming over that evening. Mia and I were never particularly close. She was more Olivia's friend than mine, and while she was around a lot, we didn't have many one-on-one conversations. I figured it was something trivial, maybe about a party or a favor I could help with. Boy, was I wrong. Mia shows up, and I can immediately tell something's off. She's fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, and there's a tension in the air that I can't quite put my finger on. Olivia stays weirdly silent while Mia starts talking, and when she does, it feels like the ground falls out from under me. Mia says she's pregnant. I swear I felt my heart stop. Pregnant? Okay, fine, that's her business. But then she says that I'm the father. At first, I thought it was some kind of sick joke. I laughed, expecting her to laugh too, but she didn't. She just looked at me with these wide, scared eyes, while Olivia sat next to her, stone-faced. My head was spinning. I couldn't process what I was hearing. Mia claims we had an affair, that we slept together about 2 months ago, and now, she's saying the baby is mine. Here's the thing. I never slept with Mia. I haven't even been alone with her for more than 5 minutes at a time. We never had an affair. We never kissed. Hell, we've barely had a conversation that didn't involve Olivia. So, where the hell was this coming from? I immediately told her she was wrong, that it wasn't possible, and I don't know why she'd make up something like that. But Mia stuck to her story, saying I was drunk one night at some party, and things just happened. According to her, I don't remember it because I was blackout drunk. Except that never happened. I wasn't at any party where I'd gotten that drunk. It was all a lie. But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that Olivia believes her. My own wife, who I thought knew me better than anyone, believes I cheated on her with her best friend. She didn't even look at me when Mia was telling her story, like she'd already made up her mind before I could even defend myself. I tried explaining that Mia was lying or mistaken, but Olivia just shook her head and said, "We'll figure this out." Figure this out? What was there to figure out? I hadn't done anything, but Olivia's already treating me like I'm guilty, like I'm some kind of monster who knocked up her best friend behind her back. And that's when everything really started falling apart. The next few days were a blur of accusations, tears, and yelling. Olivia moved into the guest room and wouldn't even look at me. She said she needed space, whatever that means, while I tried to figure out how the hell I was going to fix this. But every time I tried to talk to her, she'd just throw Mia's pregnancy in my face, like it was some kind of irrefutable proof that I had betrayed her. It didn't matter how many times I told her I didn't do it, that I didn't even remember being alone with Mia, let alone sleeping with her. None of it mattered. Olivia had made up her mind. And it wasn't just her. Word spread fast. Somehow, Mia had already told her parents, who apparently didn't waste any time calling my parents to discuss the situation. The next thing I know, I'm getting calls from my own family, telling me to get a grip and own up to what I did. My mom, bless her heart, tried to be supportive at first, but even she sounded disappointed when she said, "Jack, if you made a mistake, you need to take responsibility." My dad? He flat out told me I needed to stop being a coward and man up, but I didn't do anything. I wasn't going to man up to something I didn't do. Olivia's parents were even worse. They never liked me much to begin with, always thought I wasn't good enough for their daughter. Now, they were acting like I was some kind of predator, calling me a disgrace and saying that they always knew I was no good. I got a call from Olivia's dad the day after Mia dropped her bombshell, and he basically said, "You better take care of that kid, or you'll be hearing from my lawyer." My lawyer? Are you kidding me? I felt like I was losing control of everything. Everywhere I turned, someone else was telling me that I needed to accept this, that I had to take responsibility for Mia and the baby. I couldn't go to work without feeling like everyone knew, like they were whispering behind my back. My friends stopped calling, probably assuming I was some kind of cheating scumbag. My whole reputation was falling apart, and I had no idea how to stop it. The worst part was, I didn't even know how Mia could think I was the father. Did she really believe we slept together? Was she delusional? Or was this some kind of sick game? And why the hell did Olivia believe her? I kept asking myself that over and over again. Did she not trust me? Had our whole marriage been built on a lie if she was so quick to think I'd cheat on her? Then things got even worse. One night, about a week after this whole thing started, I got a call from Mia's father. He was livid, yelling at me over the phone, telling me I was ruining his daughter's life. He threatened to sue me for child support, saying I had no choice but to do the right thing. I hung up on him, but the damage was done. I could already see the legal battles looming on the horizon. Olivia wasn't talking to me, Mia was still spreading her lies, and now I had Mia's whole family breathing down my neck. I felt like I was losing my mind. I didn't know who to trust, who to turn to. No one believed me, not even my own wife. And the crazy part? I hadn't even touched Mia. I'd been faithful to Olivia from day one, and now my whole life was falling apart because of a lie. So, Reddit, I'm turning to you. What the hell do I do? How do I prove that I didn't do this? Can I even fix this? Or am I doomed to lose everything because of something I didn't do? I don't know how much more of this I can take. Hey Reddit, it's me again, Jack. I didn't expect to be writing another post so soon, but things have taken a turn for the even crazier. If you haven't read my first post, here's the quick version. My wife's friend Mia claimed I got her pregnant, even though I never touched her, and my wife Olivia believes her. My whole life has been spiraling out of control ever since, and now I'm at my breaking point. But that's not even the half of it. I need to tell you what's happened since I posted last time. After I hit rock bottom, I realized I couldn't just sit around and let my life fall apart. If Olivia and Mia were determined to ruin me with this insane lie, I had to fight back somehow. And that's when I decided to hire a private detective. I didn't know where else to turn. The legal threats from Mia's family were piling up, and I couldn't just wait for things to get worse. So, I found this detective agency in town. It wasn't the most high-end place, but I figured I didn't need Sherlock Holmes, just someone who could dig up the truth. That's where Mason comes in. Mason was a no-nonsense kind of guy, middle-aged, with this permanent scowl on his face like he'd seen too much of the world's bullshit. I didn't care about his attitude as long as he could help me prove that Mia was lying. When I told him the story, he didn't flinch. He's probably heard crazier things in his line of work, but he took it seriously. He said he'd start digging into Mia's background, and maybe even Olivia's if necessary. I didn't love the idea of snooping on my own wife, but at this point, I didn't know what to think anymore. If she could believe I was cheating without a second thought, maybe she wasn't who I thought she was. The first step, though, was the paternity test. I figured that would be the quickest way to end all this madness. If we could just prove I wasn't the father, then Mia's whole lie would fall apart, and maybe, just maybe, Olivia would see reason. So, I demanded a paternity test. Mia acted all smug, like she already knew the result, but I was sure this was the key to clearing my name. The test itself was easy enough. I went to the clinic, did my part, and then I waited. Olivia didn't say much during the process. She still wasn't sleeping in our bed, barely even talking to me. Every time we were in the same room, the silence between us felt like it was filled with accusations. I kept hoping she'd come to her senses, realize this whole thing didn't make any sense, but she didn't. A few days later, the results came in, and that's when the world came crashing down again. The test showed that I was the father. I couldn't believe it. I stared at the report in my hands, reading the words over and over, thinking there had to be some kind of mistake. There had to be. This was impossible. I hadn't touched Mia. There was no way that baby could be mine. But the test was clear, a 99.99% match. When I showed the results to Olivia, she didn't even look surprised. She just gave me this sad, disappointed look, like she had already known. Like she had known this whole time. That look hurt more than anything else, more than Mia's lies, more than the accusations. It felt like a confirmation that my wife, the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, had given up on me. I tried to tell her it was wrong. I told her the test had to have been tampered with, or that someone had made a mistake. But she wasn't hearing it. To her, the test was the final nail in the coffin. I could see it in her eyes. She believed I'd cheated, and no amount of pleading was going to change that. I was desperate. I called Mason and told him about the results. He didn't sound surprised either, which pissed me off at first. But then he said something that stuck with me. Sometimes the truth isn't as straightforward as it seems. Mason didn't stop investigating. If anything, the test result only made him dig deeper. He started looking into Mia's background, talking to people who knew her, trying to figure out if there was something we were missing. I didn't know what he expected to find. I mean, the test said I was the father. But I trusted Mason more than anyone else at that point, and if he thought there was more to the story, I was willing to follow him down whatever rabbit hole he found. That's when the real bombshells started dropping. Mason dug into Mia's family, her friends, anyone who might have had dirt on her or knew something that could explain all of this. And slowly, little pieces of information started to come together, forming a picture I couldn't have imagined in my worst nightmares. First, Mason found out that Mia had a long history of toxic relationships. I'm talking about restraining orders, police reports, and a string of ex-boyfriends who all said the same thing. Mia was manipulative, obsessive, and had a habit of making wild accusations when things didn't go her way. Apparently, she'd even claimed one of her exes had gotten her pregnant before, but the guy had disappeared before anyone could prove it one way or the other. That alone wasn't enough to explain why she'd target me, though. So, Mason kept digging. Then he found out something even more disturbing. Mia had been seeing someone else. Some guy named Greg, who nobody seemed to know much about. He wasn't part of Olivia and Mia's usual circle, but Mason tracked him down anyway. When Mason interviewed Greg, he got a shocking confession. Greg had been seeing Mia for months, and Mia had told him that she was pregnant with his baby. Yeah, you read that right. Mia had told this guy, Greg, that he was the father of her baby. But for some reason, she was telling me, and the whole world, that I was the father. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but the biggest question remained. Why? Why go to such lengths to ruin my life? Mason had a theory, and it wasn't pretty. According to him, Mia was in love with me. Or, more accurately, she was obsessed with me. Apparently, she'd been fixated on me for years, even before Olivia and I got together. She'd kept it under wraps, playing the part of the supportive friend while secretly hoping that I'd notice her. But when Olivia and I got married, Mia snapped. In her twisted mind, if she couldn't have me, she was going to destroy my marriage. And that's exactly what she was doing. But here's where things get even more messed up. Mason suspected that Mia had somehow tampered with the paternity test. At first, I thought he was crazy. How could she have pulled something like that off? But Mason explained that it wasn't as impossible as it seemed. There were ways to manipulate the results, especially if Mia had connections at the clinic where the test was done. It was a long shot, but it was the only explanation that made sense. I couldn't believe I was living in a world where my wife's best friend would go to such extreme lengths to sabotage my life. But at this point, nothing seemed impossible anymore. Olivia still wasn't talking to me, and Mia was acting like everything was going according to plan. I knew I had to confront her, but I couldn't do it without proof. Mason kept working. He started interviewing Mia's relatives, trying to get more dirt on her. And that's when we uncovered the final piece of the puzzle. It turns out Mia's mother knew about Greg. In fact, she had been pressuring Mia to tell him the truth about the baby, but Mia refused. She was hell-bent on pinning the pregnancy on me, probably because she knew Greg wouldn't be as easy to manipulate as I was. Mia's mother was furious, calling her daughter out for being a liar and a homewrecker, But Mia didn't care. She was committed to her lie. When Mason told me all of this, I felt a mixture of relief and rage. Relief because I finally had something to prove I wasn't crazy. Rage because this whole nightmare was the result of one woman's twisted obsession. Now I'm sitting here, trying to figure out what to do next. I'm going to confront Olivia with everything Mason has uncovered, but I don't know if she'll believe me. The damage Mia has done to my life is so deep, I don't know if there's any way to fix it. My reputation is in shambles, my marriage is hanging by a thread, and I still have no idea how this is going to end. But I'm not giving up. I'm going to clear my name, no matter what it takes. I'll update you when I know more. Reddit? Wish me luck. I'm going to need it. Hey Reddit, it's Jack again. I honestly can't believe I'm even writing this. After everything that's happened, after the nightmare my life has become, I thought things couldn't possibly get worse. But I was wrong. They did. And this time, it's beyond anything I could have imagined. If you've been following my story, you already know that my wife Olivia's best friend, Mia, has accused me of getting her pregnant. Despite my insistence that nothing happened between us, she has stuck to her lie, and Olivia believed her. I hired a private investigator, Mason, to dig into the situation, and he uncovered some shocking things. We found out that Mia had been seeing a guy named Greg, who she had also told was the father of her baby. Mason suspected that Mia had tampered with the paternity test results, which falsely showed that I was the father. Things were spiraling out of control, but I thought we were getting closer to the truth. Then, last week, everything came crashing down in the worst way imaginable. It started with an unexpected visit from Mia. I had been avoiding her like the plague since this whole thing started, but she showed up at my house when I was home alone. Olivia wasn't around, and I hadn't spoken to her in days. I don't know what Mia wanted, but when she knocked on the door, I felt this sinking feeling in my gut. I should have told her to leave, but part of me wanted answers. I wanted to know why she was doing this to me. So, I let her in. Biggest mistake of my life. At first, she was calm. Too calm. She acted like we were old friends, smiling like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't turned my life into a complete disaster. I told her to get to the point, to tell me what she wanted, but she just kept talking in circles. She started walking around the house like she owned the place, making little comments about the decor, about how nice everything was. The tension was building, and I was getting more and more uncomfortable. Something was seriously off. Then, out of nowhere, Mia lunged at me. I barely had time to react before she slammed into me, knocking me off balance. I fell hard, hitting my head against the corner of the coffee table. Everything went black. When I woke up, I was in my bedroom. I felt disoriented, my head pounding, my vision blurry. And then I realized what was happening. Mia was on top of me. I can't even describe the horror I felt in that moment. I tried to push her off, tried to fight back, but my body wasn't cooperating. I was still too dazed from the blow to my head, and Mia had the advantage. She held me down, forcing herself on me while I struggled to get free. It was like something out of a nightmare. I don't know how long it lasted. It felt like an eternity. When it was over, Mia just got up, smoothed out her clothes, and left the room like nothing had happened. I was too shocked, too numb to move. I just lay there, trying to process what had just happened to me. I couldn't believe it. Mia, the woman who had already destroyed my life with her lies, had now physically violated me in my own home. I don't know how long I lay there before the adrenaline finally kicked in. I stumbled to my feet, feeling sick to my stomach, my head still spinning from the impact. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but I didn't know who to turn to. Olivia was gone. My parents were convinced I was a liar, and the police? What would they even do? Would they believe me? Or would they think I was just some guy trying to cover up his mistakes? But then I remembered something. The cameras. You see, after everything that had been happening, I'd installed security cameras in the house. Olivia didn't know about them, and neither did Mia. I put them in as a last-ditch effort to protect myself, in case things got even more out of hand. I never thought they'd actually be needed, but now, they were my only hope. I rushed to the living room where I kept the hidden DVR, my hands shaking as I pulled up the footage. I prayed that the cameras had caught what had happened, that there was proof of what Mia had done. And there it was, clear as day. The cameras in the living room had captured her knocking me out, and the cameras in the bedroom had recorded everything else. I had proof. I was still in shock, still trying to wrap my head around what had just happened, but I knew one thing for sure. I was taking this to the police. There was no way Mia was going to get away with this. She had already ruined my life once, but now? Now I had something that could finally end this nightmare. The next few days were a blur of police reports, interviews, and meetings with my lawyer. I handed over the footage, and the authorities were just as shocked as I was. They immediately launched an investigation, and Mia was arrested within a few days. The look on her face when they took her away was priceless. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I had the upper hand. But the fallout was far from over. I thought the worst part would be over after Mia was arrested, but I was wrong. The trial that followed was one of the most harrowing experiences of my life. Mia's lawyers tried to spin the story in her favor, claiming that I had been the one to manipulate her, that the cameras were part of some elaborate scheme to frame her. They brought up the paternity test again, using it as proof that we had been involved in a sexual relationship before. It was a disgusting, desperate attempt to discredit me, but my lawyer wasn't having any of it. The courtroom became a battlefield, with both sides slinging accusations and counterarguments. Mia cried on the stand, playing the victim, but the footage was undeniable. It showed everything, from the moment she attacked me to the horrific act that followed. The jury saw it all, and there was no way they could ignore the truth. During the trial, Olivia finally came back. She had been staying with her parents since the paternity test, and we hadn't spoken much. When she walked into the courtroom, she wouldn't even look at me. I could feel the distance between us, like there was an invisible wall that had been built over months of mistrust and betrayal. I didn't know what she believed anymore. Maybe she still thought I was guilty. Maybe she had finally realized that Mia was the one who had been lying all along. Either way, I didn't care anymore. I had more important things to focus on than trying to save a marriage that was already broken beyond repair. After days of testimony, evidence, and cross-examinations, the jury finally reached a verdict. Mia was found guilty on multiple charges, including assault and sexual battery. The relief I felt when the verdict was read was overwhelming. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Mia was going to prison, and I was finally free of her toxic influence. But freedom came at a cost. Even though Mia was out of my life, the damage she had done was irreversible. My reputation had been dragged through the mud. My marriage was in ruins, and I was left picking up the pieces of a life that had been shattered by one woman's obsession. Olivia and I had a long, painful conversation after the trial. She apologized, of course. She said she was sorry for not believing me, for letting Mia manipulate her, for everything. But it was too late. The trust between us was gone, and no amount of apologies could fix that. We're getting a divorce. It's the only option at this point. There's no way we can go back to the way things were, not after everything that's happened. I don't even know if I want to. The Olivia I thought I married isn't the same person anymore. Or maybe she is, and I just didn't see it until now. As for the paternity test, Mason continued to investigate, and we finally got to the bottom of it. Turns out, Mia had bribed a technician at the clinic to switch the results. She had been so determined to ruin my life that she resorted to fraud. The truth eventually came out, but by then, the damage was already done. I wasn't the father of Mia's baby. Greg was. But that didn't matter anymore. So, here I am, Reddit. I'm trying to move on, trying to rebuild my life after everything that's happened. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. I'm done with toxic people. I'm done with lies, manipulation, and betrayal. I'm focusing on myself now, and maybe, just maybe, I'll find some peace after all of this. If there's one thing I've learned through this whole ordeal, it's that you can't always trust the people closest to you. Sometimes the ones who claim to love you are the ones who end up hurting you the most. Hey Reddit, it's Jack again, and I know. I thought the nightmare was over too. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. You'd think after everything I went through with Mia, the court case, and my divorce from Olivia, I'd be able to close that chapter of my life and move on. I certainly thought so. But the last few months have proven that what I went through was only the beginning of a new, twisted chapter that I never saw coming. I moved away from my old life, hoping to start fresh. I found a small town a few hours from the city, rented a modest apartment, and started working remotely for a new company. I'd cut ties with everyone involved in that hellish situation. My ex-wife, Mia's family, and even most of my old friends who'd sided with Olivia without ever asking for my side of the story. It was lonely, but I needed the peace, the quiet, and the anonymity that came with being in a new place. For a while, things were good. I started focusing on rebuilding myself, physically and mentally. I joined a gym, started therapy, and made a few new friends who had no idea about my past. I wasn't naive enough to think I'd just bounce back right away, but I was starting to feel like myself again, until the letters started arriving. At first, it was just a single envelope in my mailbox. No return address, just my name scrawled on the front in a handwriting I didn't recognize. I didn't think much of it, maybe a wrong address or junk mail. But when I opened it, my heart sank. Inside was a single photo of me. It wasn't just any photo. It was me, sitting at a coffee shop I'd visited earlier that day. Someone had been watching me. And then I noticed the writing on the back. In thin, spidery handwriting, it said, "Did you miss me?" My stomach turned. Could it be Mia? She was supposed to be in prison. I hadn't heard a word about her since the trial. But the photo was proof that someone was following me, someone who knew about my past and was playing some kind of twisted game. I took the letter to the police, but there wasn't much they could do. The photo wasn't threatening in a legal sense, and without a return address or any concrete evidence of who was behind it, they filed it as suspicious but non-threatening. But I wasn't convinced this was over. The letters kept coming, once a week, each more unsettling than the last. One had a photo of my new apartment building, taken from a distance. Another included a photo of me at the gym. Every time, there was a short, cryptic message. "I'm closer than you think," or "Remember me?" I started looking over my shoulder everywhere I went. Whoever was doing this wasn't just trying to scare me. They were making it clear that they could reach me anywhere. But the question remained, who was behind it? I tried to get in touch with Mason, the private investigator who had helped me before, but his number was disconnected, and his agency had apparently shut down. Dead end. I started to wonder if Mia had somehow escaped from prison, or if someone else was carrying on her twisted legacy. Either way, I knew I needed to take matters into my own hands. I installed new security cameras around my apartment, just like I had done back in the old house. This time, I wasn't going to be caught off guard. But even with the cameras, the letters kept coming, and whoever was doing this never slipped up enough to get caught on video. It was like they knew exactly how to avoid detection. Then, one day, I received a letter that changed everything. Inside was a picture of Olivia, my ex-wife. The photo wasn't recent. It was one of her taken back when we were still married. But it wasn't just a random photo. The back of the letter had a message that sent chills down my spine. "She's next." Whoever was stalking me had now set their sights on Olivia. And despite everything we'd been through, I didn't want her to get hurt. I didn't even know if she knew about what was happening, but I couldn't sit back and do nothing. I reached out to Olivia. It wasn't an easy conversation, considering how things had ended between us, but I had to warn her. At first, she didn't believe me. She thought I was being paranoid, that maybe I was overreacting. But when I showed her the letters, the photos, and the latest threat, she finally realized the danger she was in. Olivia agreed to help me, though she still didn't fully trust me. We decided to try and figure out who was behind this together. I started looking into Mia's family again, wondering if maybe one of them was carrying out some sick revenge plan. But the more we dug, the more confusing things became. And then, something unexpected happened. Olivia disappeared. I came home one night after work and found a note on my doorstep. It wasn't in Olivia's handwriting, but it was addressed to me. "She's with me now. Don't make the same mistake twice." My heart stopped. I called Olivia's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried her friends, her parents. No one had heard from her. It was like she had vanished into thin air. I knew this was connected to the letters, to whoever was behind this, but I didn't know where to start. Desperate, I went back to the police, but without concrete evidence, there wasn't much they could do. They said it hadn't been long enough to file a missing persons report. I felt like I was living the same nightmare all over again. Only this time, someone else was paying the price. That's when I received the final letter, The one that changed everything. Inside was a USB drive. No note, no photo this time, just the drive. I plugged it into my laptop, and what I saw made my blood run cold. It was footage from my security cameras. Only this footage didn't show me. It showed Olivia being led into a dark room by a hooded figure. The video was grainy, but I could make out enough to see that Olivia wasn't resisting. She was following the figure willingly. And then, at the end of the video, the hooded figure turned to the camera, lifted their head slightly, and for a split second, I saw their face. It was Mia. Except it wasn't Mia. It was someone who looked just like her, someone with the same twisted smile, the same cold eyes. But it couldn't have been her. Mia was in prison, right? Or was she? I realized with horror that whoever this was, they weren't done yet. And they weren't just after me anymore. They were coming for everyone who had been involved. Olivia was only the beginning. Now, I'm sitting here, writing this because I don't know what to do next. I've tried everything. Police, private investigators, security cameras, and still, I'm no closer to figuring out who this person is or why they're doing this. All I know is that I'm running out of time, and if I don't figure it out soon, someone else is going to get hurt. Reddit, I'm begging you. What do I do? How do I stop this nightmare before it consumes everything?